Hello and welcome to Lawyerish, a podcast for the people. Lawyerish is a safe place to learn, grow, inspire, and be inspired. So come along and ride on this fantastic voyage. Let us go be great together. I'm Brandon J. Wallace, Esquire, and I'll be your captain. It's a whole vibe, and I sure am glad you're here. Lawyerish is brought to you by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence. And our voyage vibe today is brought to us by Lakeside. This is Fantastic Voyage. It's off their 1980 album, Fantastic Voyage. Friends, I'm so excited about this episode, this season. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1. I'm going to talk to my friend Emily Hubbard. She's an attorney at DOJ, and we're going to learn about her simply electric career, and that's just going to be exciting. We're going to totally geek out a little bit, and then we're going to talk to my good friend Wesley Weston. He's created this awesome game that is transforming game nights all over the country. You're not going to want to miss it. And of course, we'll have our updates and duly noted and motivational moments and all that wonderful things, all the wonderful things that we did from last season. We're gonna do them again, but better. So, anyways, let's get right in to duly noted. I missed y'all. Let's get to work.
Hey friends, we are back, and it's now time for duly noted. I want to apologize ahead of time if you're watching on YouTube. You'll see that my background's very different, and so is my outfit. I have traveled to Memphis to check on my granny, who just recently had surgery last month. Thanks for those who know about it and who have been sending prayers and well wishes. She is doing wonderfully, recovering well, and I am here to help support her recovery process. So continue to keep her and our family in your prayers. She's doing great, though. And we're happy that for the surgeons and doctors who are overseeing her care, much appreciated to them and to you. This week's duly noted, it's going to be fairly brief, guys, just because there's nothing more important than the upcoming election. Election day is November 8th. All around the country, we'll be having midterm elections. And so I just want to take a moment in our duly noted segment today to encourage you to make your plan to vote. When this airs, Election Day will be 1 week away, 7 days. 7 days before you and I get to cast our votes and make our voices heard in a nation that really needs it, right? And really needs to hear our voices. And so I'm encouraging you to make a plan to vote early if you can. If your early voting is still open, I encourage you to get do your early voting now. Go vote early so you don't have to worry about being trapped in line or other things that come up. The vote is really, really, really important. I would argue to say there's not a right that's more important than the right to cast your vote and to be heard. Debatable, sure. Nonetheless, the right to vote is critical. People have fought and died for our right to cast a vote, and that is no matter what race or color or creed or culture you come from, people died for your right to vote, for my right to vote. It would be just a shame and a tragedy if we didn't honor their sacrifice and make sure our voice is heard. So do me a favor today. Call someone, text someone, post on your social media. Do whatever you can to encourage others to vote and make sure you cast your vote as well. I won't tell you who to vote for or how or what. But I will tell you, your voice needs to be heard. Don't sit this one out. Democracy is on the ballot every single time. But in this day and age, I think it's on the ballot more so now than ever. There are forces in our world that are seeking to deceive and deter and even defer democracy. And we can't allow that to happen. So please, 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 please make sure you take the time to vote. Vote early. Vote, I would say vote often, but not too often, right? Only vote once, but vote often in each election, right? Every election that we have, I just encourage you to vote. It's so important. Without the vote, we are not America, truly. We are not a democracy. So the only way democracy works is if folks like you and I get out and vote. If you're passionate about a candidate or a cause, I encourage you to get involved. Knock on doors, make phone calls, do some phone banking. This is the time. The time is now. It's not too late, and we can do it. All right, friends, that's your duly noted for this week or this episode. We'll be right back. All right, friends, we are back and it is time for Lawyerish. I'm here today with my good friend, Miss Emily Hubbard. She is the Assistant Director with the U.S. Department of Justice and an adjunct professor at Georgetown Law School. She served as counsel to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Environmental Protection Agency, where she litigated employment, national security, and FOIA cases. She also served as special counsel to the Boston Public Schools, where she advised and litigated labor and employment matters. She also litigated special education cases and adjudicated student discipline appeals. Emily is a graduate of Boston College Law School and Bowdoin College. She studied in France during her undergraduate and law school career and is fluent in French. While at Boston College Law School, she was a member of the National European Law Moot Court team and was vice president of the Black Law Students Association. She loves traveling, writing, and spending time with her daughter and husband. Emily, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much for having me, friend.
All right, so that was a mouthful. You have lots of broad, wonderful experience. Why don't you tell us how you just got into law school? And then I want to kind of talk about how you traversed the different fields and how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, I was interested in attending law school after talking to some alumni who gave me some really good perspective on how you can make an impact for just individual, everyday people through the law. And, being young and sort of being an undergrad, it seemed like there were so many opportunities and possibilities there. So once I applied and got into law school, like you said, I attended Boston College. And I actually have a really funny story of how I got my first job.
That's at the Boston Public Schools.
That's right. And I think you'll
Okay.
appreciate this as a fellow Memphian. So at the time I was living in Boston and I had just graduated. I graduated during the time of sort of the big recession. And so I was looking for a position and I was driving, and Dr. Johnson, who used to be the superintendent of Memphis City Schools and also the superintendent of Boston Public Schools, actually came and knocked on my window because she saw my Shelby County license plate. And she said, "Hi, and I'm so excited you're from Memphis. And if there's anything I can ever do for you." And so I thought, great, there's definitely something you could do
It's
for
actually
me.
something you
And
can do. Yes. Okay.
so we spoke on the phone, I think the next day. And she said, if you have an interest in coming to BPS, just give me a call and we'll try to figure something out. So long story short, I met with her, I think the CFO, and he let me know there was a possibility of doing labor and employment law.
And so you had not really had a plan to go into this particular field. That opportunity just opened up for you. Okay.
Yeah, I was working at a law firm, so my thought was I was going to practice corporate law, and I kind of just broadly thought I would do some transactional law. And they had an opening in their, at that time, it was just sort of the general law office, but with a focus on labor and employment. And I was very interested in it. I would say after about just a couple of months, the work was fast paced. It was difficult and challenging. I was doing arbitrations 3 weeks into this, new job. I was interviewing witnesses. I was working on assault cases. It was really serious and difficult work, but also just very interesting legal work, and put me in a position where I was first sharing things and would have never gotten that experience had I not been working for a municipality.
And for first year, for folks who don't know, first year, that means you were sort of running the show, right? It was, you
Yeah.
were the decision maker. You were giving counsel, and in many ways, the book was stopping with you.
Yep. Which was crazy for them, but thankfully I was not rogue and took it very seriously. So just learned a ton about specifically administrative law, and a lot of people just go directly into federal or state court, but there are all these administrative forums, like hearings, arbitrations. And so I learned a lot about how those work, how the rules of evidence play a role, and to what extent. So it was just it was a great foundation for a very young lawyer.
And I imagine that helped prepare you for your next sort of phase, right, of your career. You were, this what really kind of sticks out to me, sort of at your on your resume or in your bio here is this: you were counsel for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and EPA. Of course, I love EPA. I used to work for them myself, but this Director of National Intelligence, this is a big job, and you're the attorney for that office. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, what I did was after I took the BPS, Boston Public Schools position, I sort of tailored my career to labor and employment. And so going to EPA, I was counsel litigating EEOC cases, Merit Systems Protection Board, other types of administrative cases, and also cases in federal court. And I really took it upon myself to sort of figure out, what does a labor and employment attorney look like? Because a lot of people were like, how can you do labor and employment or know it well working at EPA? So I think that's sort of a good lesson about just understanding your skills and how they're transferable. And so Odie and I really wanted an employment counsel. They had sort of an onslaught of EEO matters, which is equal employment opportunity. And I happened to have that expertise in the federal setting. So I had a great foundation for it. And then that job really stretched me because I had to learn other areas of the law, national security law, some FISA, some employee vetting. But I also had to learn how to conduct hearings in a classified setting, which was entirely new. And so being in that world, I think, I think I was a strong asset for them, but it was also a wonderful experience for me to even further build out this sort of labor and employment expert in the federal sector.
So let's unpack that a little bit. All right, I'm tracking you, but for some of my listeners here, we're talking about classified hearings. We're talking about like FISA courts, right? Can you talk a little bit about what a FISA court is and why we have them in this country?
Yeah, so FISA was a small part of my portfolio, but basically FISA is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And so it just deals with surveillancing people that are potential bad actors. And mostly with FISA, like you said, there's a FISA court, and it's a specific court that has not been around forever. It was created, I think, sometime after 9/11, so maybe 20 some odd years. So that is a very specific type of hearing. There's only certain sorts of information that you can provide. Only certain people can review it. And that same classified setting was transferred to my employment litigation because I was representing the Director of National Intelligence, so management side, and employees were doing classified work. So for example, if you have someone that is challenging, that they were being terminated based on their performance, you have to be able to talk about the work that they did, to an EEOC judge. And so we had to do that in a classified way with clear judges. And it's just a different way of operating than when you're able to just provide everything under the sun and discovery is not really an issue. You have to be really careful about making sure that anything that you're disclosing is, you've been cleared up to that level to provide it, and the judge has been cleared up to that level to see it.
Well, and that's obviously a very stark difference from sort of a regular court or administrative court where everything's on the record and it's for the public. So it's a matter of the public record.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm just saying it's totally different.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. very enlightening there. I want to get to some of your inspiration, right? How did you, and even now, I don't know if you want to talk about your current job, uh, but maybe we can kind of talk about what inspires you to continue to work in the field and how that is going for you now.
Yeah. So I say that I enjoy being a lawyer much more than I enjoy law school. So if you don't enjoy law school, don't give up because it can get better. I did not enjoy law school. That's just sort of my
Yeah,
reality.
same, same.
And so when I graduated, I thought, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to go. But I have to say, I think really leaning into who I am and sort of what I know I'm capable of has really helped me develop an interesting career. Because my career is sort of strange, it's not just a linear, I went to a firm and practiced labor and employment law and then did it, until now. I've switched agencies. I've done different aspects of employment. I've done litigation. I've done counseling. I've done sort of these weird national security aspects of employment, like federal suitability law and security clearances for federal employees. And
Yeah.
part of my
Wow.
motivation is internal. It's sort of self driven by being excited by the possibilities that I never knew existed in the law and realizing that, wow, there's a lot of different work that you can really throw yourself into. But I also continue to be inspired by the people that I work with, especially Black women. I just continue to be inspired by their, as Kamala would say, the joyful warriors. And it's just incredible to watch so many Black women, especially in DC, care so much about the work, but also engage it from a perspective of just this humanity. And so, for example, my former boss at DOJ was one of my favorite people. And one of the things that she would always say is when we would talk about like difficulties, difficult clients, difficult relationships, she'd say, there's always tomorrow. You can try again tomorrow. And I always carried that with me because I firmly believe, yeah, it didn't go well this time, but we keep trying and we keep trying to make progress. And so I think those are two of my biggest sort of sources of inspiration.
Well, I like that, and I think what you've done also is you answered my last question, which is maybe willing, what is some advice you'd give? But I'm going to ask you anyway. Maybe there's more, because I like that idea of like there's always tomorrow, right? But anyway, please, what any parting words? We're running out of time, but I want to hear from you on that. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, my biggest advice is to have confidence in yourself, to look internally and figure out how you can market yourself. Law school is going to tell you you can either go to a firm or work in the government. And there are just so many more possibilities, and especially markets like DC where you can be a full time practicing lawyer or quasi lawyer. So, my advice, whether, law student or sort of in mid career, is really just to figure out what do you enjoy doing and find a way to package yourself because most times you have enough transferable skills to be attractive for really anything you want.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for taking time to do this show. We really appreciate it, my good friend, my fellow Memphian. Thank you so much. Friends, we'll be right back.
All right, friends, we are back, and it's now time for our wellness check. And it's simple this week. The wellness check is simple. Go to the water. Or if you're from the South, you might say, go to the water. Water represents one of the most important things on the planet. We got to go to the water daily. We got to retreat to the water. Without water, life cannot exist. Water hydrates, it detoxifies, it breaks down in solvents, it protects, it cleanses. Well, this wellness check is not just about a literal go to the water. It doesn't mean just drink the water, although we certainly encourage that and that we should be doing more of it. But it's a figurative thing too. It's what represents water in your life? Is it prayer time? Is it travel? Is it quiet time, meditation? Is it walks? Is it exercise? We all have to figure out what the water is for each of us, and we've got to make sure that we do that daily. Do it daily. When you wake up, do it, right? Throughout the day, it's something that you do. Whatever it is that helps you break down the toxins in your life. Whatever it is that helps us get rid of some of the anger or the toxic things that are happening in and around us. The water helps us to overcome that. And so you and I have got to find out what that water is and do it, be disciplined enough to do it daily. When we're overwhelmed or stressed or feeling sad or grieving, remember that the water is there to give us life and strength. So today and every day, make a practice of going to the water. Retreat to the water. Go daily for what you need so you can be your best self and show up for the people who need and love you most. That's your wellness check today. Go to the water.
All right, welcome back, friends. It's now time for our Apex highlight, and I am super excited today. We have my good friend, Mr. Wesley Weston. He is the founder and creator of Let's Unpack This, a modern approach to the traditional game night. Wes is a Southern transplant now living here in Washington, D.C., a graduate of the University of Arkansas, the University of Maryland, and the George Washington University Law School. He is a veteran of the U.S. Army, where he served for 6 years as a communications officer. Thank you for your service, sir. Mr. West is a newbie to the gaming world, having spent most of his life working in politics and the world of music and entertainment. He first came across the gaming world when he obtained his event management certification and project management certifications from the George Washington University in 2012 and 2017. Wes, thanks so much for being on the show. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Really excited to be here and looking forward to this.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into it. What in the world is Let's Unpack This? How did you come up with it, and why is it a modern approach to the game night?
Great question. So this all started in pandemic. Was trapped in the house like everybody else in 2020 when the world ended unexpectedly, and was going through all the games. I was playing Uno, playing Spades, and honestly playing every game that I could find on Amazon.
Yeah.
I was playing these with my little quarantine bubble that I created with those 3 or 4 friends. And one thing I started to notice is that a lot of these games, they sucked.
Yeah.
And they honestly weren't made for my age demographic or honestly for people of color. So me being the type A personality that I am, instead of complaining about it, I decided to do something about it. So I created my own game. I started with, kind of shopping questions around, kind of dropping questions here and there, kind of seeing how questions would lead to conversation and things like that. And that's honestly the origin of the name. Let's Unpack This, because my game at its foundation is meant to further discussion, to get people talking about topics. And hopefully at the end of the day, we will get to learn more about each other. So I would be just, randomly at a dinner, at a brunch, and just, kind of ask a question to the table and, honestly see how people fight and see how people would disagree on things, and then see how people would end up unpacking, the reasoning behind answers and things like that. So now we are 2 years in the game. We have 2 games out, and now looking forward to releasing our 3rd game in January of 2023.
Yeah, that's right. So you've got, I know you have the sort of original version.
Yes.
And you also have a couples version, but that's not the one that's coming out in January.
No, so we do have the original version. Then we have the relationship version, which is red flags, green flags, and everything in between.
Okay.
And then in January,
unpack that.
Oh, we will.
Okay.
And in January, we'll be releasing our triple X version, which is intimacy and ecstasy.
Ooh, that's for the grown-ups. Okay.
Yeah, that's for the grown and sexy. Or as the hashtag says, not your grandmother's game.
Okay, all right, which is important, I think, because your other games, the original version and the
The
couples
relationship,
version,
yeah.
they are pretty. They could be.
Mm-hmm.
They could be a lot. They could be very interesting. But it is very much an intergenerational game. Like lots of
Yes.
people can play them. There's not. You can engage a room full of people, or
Yes.
just 2 people. And I think that's one of the great things about it. So I think it's certainly the game is certainly in line with your original mission, because I mean, I've had people at my house playing it, and age range from 2021 to 70, 80, and
Yeah.
everybody's playing together and having a really good time with it.
Exactly. And that was
Uh,
honestly the point, because as creating the games and creating the cards, I always try to put something in there that everybody can, understand, everybody can participate in. Now, some of the questions are kind of geared to the younger generation. Some questions are geared to, the millennial age group. And then I have some of those questions that may be considered quote unquote old school. So, I kind of wanted to make sure that I could get a wide range of ages in there. But I definitely want to make sure that people are always having a discussion, always having a conversation. And at the end of the day, hopefully, whenever you leave an event or a function or a game night, you always think, "Oh man, you remember that question that got asked at the game night 2 weeks ago?" Yes, that's what I'm going for.
that is so funny because I've done that. That's happened a couple of times. Like I've taken your game with me to other game nights and things like that.
Oh, great.
I actually the last one. Yeah, I should be one of your sponsors or one of your brand ambassadors.
Brand
Don't
ambassadors.
forget me. Yeah. Okay. So I took it to one of the games, and I remember one that really got the crowd going. I can't remember the exact question, but it was like, which singer can you like do without, or who was like
Yes,
the
which
best or
legend, which legend and all of their works. That's always
oh,
the part of that question that gets people, because it's like anything they did, anything they've written, anything they
yeah.
produced. And also another approach to my game is, I know we've all have experienced those games where it's like 3 or 4 options and it's always that one really obvious answer that everybody
Mhm.
goes toward. I take those out.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
yeah.
always 3, like, and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, no, it was tough. I mean, it was like well, I think it was like Patty,
Hmm.
Luther,
Hmm.
Whitney,
Stevie, yeah.
and Stevie. Like it was crazy. Like what we need all of them. But
Yes.
you had to make a decision. You had to
Yeah.
make a decision, and you really get down to some of the preferences of folks and who they really
Correct.
like and what
Yes.
really
And
moves them.
why? Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah, yeah,
Why are
yeah.
you a stark Aretha fan? What is it about Aretha that you just stand in it? I want to know why.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. It really is an engaging game. So congratulations on that. It really is exciting. I'm looking forward to the next phase, to the next game. But before
Hmm.
we talk about the next game, the
Hmm.
Triple X, actually, we probably won't talk about that today. This is a PG
This is a
PG
family show.
podcast. Sometimes it's a family show. We're trying to do better on the second season. But but let's unpack the relationship game, the
Yes.
relationship version a little bit. You're talking about green flags, red flags. How does your game help us sort of expose some of that and get to some of the nitty gritty that relationships often need and don't get?
Yes. So one I think plus about my game is I always get the people always ask me, how do you come up with the questions? Where do you come up with this stuff from? And I always do focus groups before I
Mm,
release a game, and I always do focus groups in different cities, because one thing I've noticed is that sometimes you can get more regional answers. So I
sure.
kind of, I want to shop things around because I personally can think a question is absolutely great and it's gonna, just this is gonna be the one, and I can shop it around and it can be a dud. So I always, I've always tested it on a wide variety of people. So with the relationships one, I always have those questions in my mind that I ask, on a first date,
Ah,
6 months into a relationship. I have quite a few friends recently that have gotten engaged and have gotten married. So there are certain questions that I ask them, like, when do you start talking about finances? When do you guys run each other's credit? Things like that. So that's how I kind of started with that game with the red flags and the green flags. You have those questions that some people like honestly might find offensive. That's probably a
mm,
red flag question.
yeah.
And then I have some of those softball questions in there, kind of ease people into it. But the great thing about the relationship game is that it is meant for every phase of a relationship. So if you just
Mm.
started dating, it's great. If you guys have been together for a while, if you're old and married and retired, it's even for you all. So I definitely really love putting that game together.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, look, I got to get into a little bit of this Triple X game. I just got to. I got to. I can't.
Can't leave it
I can't
alone.
leave that on. I can't. I can't. So tell us about that. What's the inspiration behind that, and what can gamers be prepared to engage with when they get this game?
So the Triple X game, I definitely want to put a disclaimer out there. This is not the game that you want to pull out at Thanksgiving. This is
Okay.
this is not the game that you want to put out with grandma and the great aunts, because this right here, this may not be the one for them. The Triple X game is definitely, it's a grown and sexy game. It's definitely meant for the sexier crowd. It's gonna definitely push some of those more risque questions. There are a lot of sexual questions in it. Nothing that would be like considered, universally offensive or anything like that. But I want to know, what's your favorite sexual position and why?
Okay.
What's the craziest place you've ever had sex at? There are certain questions in there that deal with fruit and things in the refrigerator
Oh,
and
food chalet.
stuff like
Food
that.
chalet.
So this is definitely, this is the after midnight game.
Okay, exciting. Okay, looking forward to that. And so that's out in January. How can people find the game?
So first things first, I do have a website. So you can check us out at unpackthis.net. You can see the commercials we put out. You can read about the origin in the about section. And more importantly, you can hit the buy now link, and it's going to shoot you right over the Amazon. Both of the games available on Amazon, the original and relationships. And Triple X will also be available on Amazon in January. One thing I also wanted to do was stick to a reasonable price point. Because I personally did a lot of research and bought a lot of games on Amazon, and I ended up spending a lot of money because some of the games are just, they're a higher price point. So I tried to stick around the $15 to $20 price point for each game. And it's available on Amazon Prime. One thing I also tell people is, you talk to Amazon. Don't talk to me about that. That's between you and Amazon. It says 2 days. Don't call me on day 3. I don't know where the game
Okay.
is, but
That's a
they're
good
all
disclaimer to
available.
put out. Yeah.
It's on Amazon.
Okay. Listen, I'm running out of time, unfortunately. I feel like I could talk to you for forever about this and so many other things. And I hope you'll come back on the show and talk about your law work as well, do our
Absolutely will.
lawyers segment. But what I want to get, only got time for one question. And so I want to get your advice for other entrepreneurs, or maybe even your younger self. I mean, you've got a wealth of experience.
Hmm.
What can you share with your younger self, or some younger entrepreneur who's maybe thinking about getting into the gaming industry, or maybe doing some of the many other things that you do? What do you offer to somebody who is looking for some guidance?
I'll probably say the best advice that I was ever given, and it honestly took me a while to like stand in it, is you just have to do it. You
Mm,
can't wait on others. You can't wait on others to push you or things like that. People are going to question you. People are going to ask why. People are not going to understand, but it's not for them. This is your vision, not theirs. So
yeah,
you just have to wake up one day and decide that I'm going to do this. And that's honestly what I did. I put this off for months and months because I second guessed myself. I questioned myself. And one day I just said, like, this was put on me to do, so now I need to walk in it. So the
yeah.
best advice that I could ever give any entrepreneur, any young person, or even my younger self, I wish I had known this, 10 years ago with some of the other stuff I wish I should have done, but that you just honestly have to do it.
Yeah, gosh, that is so good, and that even touches on one of our motivational moments. I think probably for this episode, where it's like sometimes you just got to do it afraid, right? You
Yes,
may not have all the answers. You just you gotta step out there and do it, and don't be paralyzed with fear. And we'll talk a little
absolutely.
bit more about that. But
Yeah.
I thank you so much for sharing that, my friend. We're gone over time, but it's all right. This has been good, and we
Thank
look
you for
forward to
having
chatting
me,
with you
sir.
again. Friends, go please support this young black veteran owned business. Let's go get it. Let's unpack this. You're showing it on the screen if you're looking at it on YouTube. Put it in the camera just a little bit more.
There we
There we
go.
go. Perfect. That's it. Thanks again so much, Wes. I appreciate you for being on the show. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
All right, friends, we are back, and it's now time for our motivational moment. And today, I want to talk about overcoming fear. Overcoming fear is the key to success, love, joy, and peace. The road to an abundant life goes through a town called fear, and you can't get to the town of abundant life without going straight through fear. As they say, scared money don't make money. And so we have a choice to make. We can choose to be crippled by fear, often disguised as comfort, or we can do as my boxing coach used to say, and bite down on our mouthpiece and give it all you got. Rest in peace, Coach Russell. We got to learn how to do it afraid. Yes, it's scary. Yes, we could fail. Yes, people don't believe in us. But we have to choose ye this day to face our fears, right? We can face our fears today and realize the joy and freedom of tomorrow. Don't let fear speak for you. Don't let fear speak through you. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Oftentimes, we get into these situations where it's fight, flight, or freeze. And many of us are frozen because we are too afraid to move. I've been guilty of this. I've let fear govern for me. I have given this example of, I've had this fear of success, fear of failure, fear of what people may think, anxiety. And I feel like I carry that around with me on like a book bag. And it's like full of bricks. And each brick is a fear or an anxiety or, something of that nature, right? Where I'm carrying this and it's with me 24/7, 7 days a week. And as you can imagine, that makes it really hard to show up fully and completely if I've got all this weight that I'm carrying with me. Remember, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. So don't let fear freeze you. Don't be frozen by fear. Push through and get to the abundant life that God has for you and for me. Abundant life awaits, friends. That's your motivational moment. We'll be right back. Well, friends, we've done it again. This is Season 2, Episode 1 in the bag. Big thanks to my guests, Emily Hubbard and Wesley Weston. Big thanks to our social media and marketing associate, Mr. Marcel Simmons. And of course, thanks to you, my friends, for listening and for watching. Shout out to Lakeside for our Voyage Vibe today. Lawyerish is brought to us by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Like any voyage, it's always just a little bit more fun when you can bring a friend or two along. I love you with the love of the Lord, friends. Until next time, be well.